Hello everyone, we are live on YouTube. So today's talk is around JavaScript design patterns. So all the famous design patterns Shivam will be walking us through. So Shivam, you can start with the introduction and then the talk.
Yeah, as you all know now, we have this series of talks that we do, and this time we have decided to do the JavaScript design patterns. We'll briefly go through the agenda of this discussion, that what we are going to do today and how we are going to do that. I'll share my screen first, and let me know when you are able to see my screen.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah. Let's briefly go through the agenda. We are expecting this to be around a 30 to 40 minutes talk on JS design patterns. And after that, we'll be discussing some tips and tricks that we generally do so that we are up to the mark to the new things that are there. So without wasting any time, let's start with the design patterns. Okay, why do we need JavaScript design patterns? This code says code structuring becomes more important as the applications become complex. Design patterns help us to write maintainable, readable, and reusable code. So that means when your applications grow, you need something that can maintain your code. So design patterns comes to the rescue, and if you are not using design patterns, your code may end up a little mess because they are not separate designation for the code. Talk will highlight about the patterns in JS. I'll move to the GitHub page where we have the description of all these patterns. Basically, what patterns we are going to discuss is our module pattern, the revealing modular pattern, the constructor pattern, the singleton pattern, and the factory pattern. These are the patterns that are most widely used in JavaScript. There are a lot of other patterns as well, but basically the JavaScript code revolves around these patterns only. So how this talk is different from the talks that you have seen earlier regarding the patterns is, you know which patterns exist in JavaScript. You know how to use those patterns in JavaScript. But sometimes you don't understand when and why of those things. You don't understand when to use a particular pattern. You don't have seen a real example where you can actually think of. Even myself, I know these patterns, but when it comes to the implementation, we are sometimes confused that should I use this one, should I use that one. So today we'll see that in which scenario you can use this particular pattern. So let's start with the first one. The first pattern is the modular pattern. uh, you all are aware of how modules work in JavaScript. It's one of the most prevalent used design patterns in JavaScript. How you can relate to this pattern is, if you are familiar with the OOPS concept, the object-oriented language concepts, model patterns are something similar to that. When you want to use this pattern is, say you want to do something, uh, some modifications with your say functions or something, or variables, and you want to encapsulate those variables without revealing them to the outside world. In that case, you can use this modular pattern. It's similar concept that you have studied around encapsulation that happens in OOPS concepts. How it works is, it forms a closure of the private variables, and those private variables can be accessed only inside this class rather than accessible to the outside world. We'll see how we have to implement these modular pattern. Let's first discuss about immediately invoke function expressions. I hope you all are aware of these things. This is the basic thing that you need to know while implementing modular patterns. So how IIFE works is, you have a function, and you wrap that function inside parentheses and you call that function. What it allows you to do is it makes a closure of the private variables so that those variables cannot be accessed by outside world, and you can return whatever you want to return from your methods so that you want those methods to be accessible by the outside world. We'll just see example how this actually works. Say you have a test module, and how you have implemented that test module is you have a function, and inside that you have a variable counter, which is a private variable and which cannot be accessed from outside. And you want to return two methods. Say you want to return increment counter and recent counter to someone outside that is using your class. So how you implement that is, in the return method you explicitly type that methods and the implementation of those methods, like you write increment counter and implementation to that, and similarly for the recent counter. The thing is, this variable counter can only be accessed inside this class. You cannot access this outside this. That is the basic thing that encapsulation, that how encapsulation is happening inside this. And if you want to use this, because this is an immediately invoked function expression, whenever this gets executed, you'll get an object named test module, and it will have two properties which were returned by your object. One is the increment counter and second is the reset counter. So you can access this test module dot increment counter, so it will increase your counter, and to access a reset counter you can use test module dot reset counter. So basically a fairly simple implementation of this pattern. This is basically how you will implement this module pattern, and how it helps you. It helps you to maintain some variables, because someone outside cannot modify your counter variable directly, so that you end up messing your results. So this is maintained by this counter only. Yeah. Do you have any questions on this, or any confusions, or you want to add something to it?
I think it's fairly straightforward. Understood how it is working.
Yeah, cool. Okay, let's move ahead and see a real life example of where you would like to use the modular pattern. Say you want to implement a basket, that is say a shopping basket you have, and you have a simple basket that is an array, and you want to do something with that, with items you have in the basket. So what do? Is you return only methods that you want to be accessed from outside. Say add item, get item count, and get total. Say you want someone from outside to just add your item in your basket, and you will do some manipulations on that, and you want to get the item count, so you will expose this get item count method, and also get total method that you can access from outside. And inside this you will do some internal manipulations to your data, so how the price is gonna add to all the stuff. So how you will use this pattern is, you'll have this basket module available as a global object, and you can just simply call the add item method, and it takes an object, and what it does is it will just push those values to the basket you have. And similarly you can add multiple items to the basket. So we have just exposed add item to this, and also we have exposed the get price. So internally you want to calculate the price of all the stuff that you have added in your basket. So at that time you can think of using some sort of modular pattern, because you want to do some internal manipulations with your data. You want to add or do count the number of items you have added in your basket. So at that time you think of this patterns. So yeah, you can access the items by using get item count method, and similarly get total, you will get the total of the price. And also there was a variable basket that was used inside, which we know is a part of closure, so it won't be accessible to outside. So if we try to print this basket module dot basket, it will give you undefined, because there is no variable that is exposed to the outside world that exists like this. And also similarly, if you try to access only basket, it will also not available. It will say some error because this variable does not exist. It's only accessible to the closure that is inside that. A fairly simple implementation of the modular pattern. Now you understand when to use this pattern when you want to hide some of your private variables and want to do internal manipulations in that, and how to use this pattern. We have seen that how the implementation works here.
So this modular pattern is highly usable. So we in our company we uses this modular pattern and also the revealing module pattern a lot. So because we
Yeah.
are not using the ECMA version 6 of JavaScript, so this allows us to create a class-like structure which gives all these things which Shivam told, like private and public, and I also can create methods with same name so that my code remains highly maintainable. So it is a very easy to implement and highly used pattern.
Right. In every implementation, you can see this is a fairly and most widely commonly used method, and fairly simple to use as well. Okay, let's move to the another variation of the modular pattern, which is called as revealing modular pattern. Uh, what Heelman, the creator of this pattern, didn't like about the modular pattern was, what we have to do in the modular pattern was we have to explicitly implement these things in the return of your object, in the return of your function. So you define add item here, and also you implement this method here. So it's like readability was going was not clear in this case. So he wanted something so that you don't have to distinguish between the private and the public methods, so that you don't have to explicitly define those public methods in your return, and you don't have to explicitly do private only in the upper parts. So what he came up with, um, he came up with the revealing modular pattern. And this is the implementation of the revealing modular pattern, which you see now. Say you have a private variable which says some random channel, and a public variable. The way you define your private functions as well as public functions is the same. You don't have to do that in the return. You don't define those functions in return type. You define it as simple a function, and if you have to access that function, you can directly call some private functions from the public function. I have named this as public, so just as to make clear what I am exposing to the outside world, but there is no implementation difference in the private and the public methods as such. So, and how you reveal these methods is you just point this out, saying I want to reveal set name, uh, which has the properties of public set name. That means I'm exposing public set name function as with the name of set name, and I'm exposing public variable as a greeting, and also I'm exposing public get name as a get name method. So here you can see the readability of the code has increased so much, and you can directly return what you want and with what name you want to return from this. Basically, it's just a modification of the modular pattern, just a cleaner way to write, more cleaner way to write the modular pattern. And how you access the way public methods is the same. You call with this get name method, and use my revealing module dot get name. What it does is it calls the private function, and private function is this, which says YouTube channel private variable. The private variable is some random channel, so it prints YouTube channel, some random channel. And if you do my revealing module dot set name JS trends, it will set the name to JS trends that you have filled in. This will call, it will change a private variable to JS trends, and when you call get name again, what it does is it does a similar thing, and now you get the output as YouTube channel JS trends. So similar usage, but cleaner way of writing code in this way. Yeah. Okay. Any questions on this one, or anything you like to add?
So we use this revealing module pattern with certain kind of a bit of modification. We mainly use it in jQuery. So for importing certain things, we use this patterns. Let's say, for example, you want to import some library or you want to import some module. So what you will do is, with revealing module pattern, the IFI which Shivam showed, you can pass that name of the object or the library, and then that could be available as a module, and then you can extend it. So it is very good because it is not polluting the global namespace.
Right. You can pass any parameters you want to
Yeah,
pass
yeah,
in this function, and you can access those inside this. Yeah.
yeah.
Right. Right. Let's move ahead to the next construct pattern that we use in constructor pattern. It's a fairly simple pattern. You might have seen a lot number of implementations of this, because this comes into your mind when you use JavaScript. This is basically nothing but you just create an object, and since you just create a function, say car, and it takes some model of the car, year and miles, and just set these properties to do something, and say you have a function that you want to expose, and it is just not doing anything, just returning the internal variables with some modifications. And how do you use this is you just do new on car and just pass your variables. So what it is generally used for, it is used for preparing the object for use and accepting the arguments. You can directly pass the arguments while preparing your object. So this is a fairly commonly used pattern. You might be aware of how to use this, and you have seen a number of implementations of this one. Yeah, I think we don't need to discuss it more. Cool. Right. Also, there's one more thing to this. There's a if you want a prototype in this, you can attach your methods to the prototype property available to the function, and you can just add your function into this. As we have already discussed the prototypes in details in the previous session that we had, so I'm not going to in detail of this one. You are aware that how to use this prototype and how it works differently. It just is a common reference to all the instantiations that you do, rather than creating new version of this one every time. Just a simple common reference to everything. Yeah. Any questions or doubts on this one?
No.
Yeah, cool. The next one is the singleton pattern. What this pattern is, it restricts the instantiation of a class to a single object. What that means is, if you already have the instantiated object available with you, it will not let you allow to create a new object. You are aware of how the services and factories providers work in AngularJS. These are implemented in the singleton pattern way, because they modify or they use same state, so or shared resources. So that's why we use singleton pattern there. We don't want the user or the implementer to access the multiple instances of that. When a real life example of singleton pattern is, say you have a printer in your office, and there are 10 people in your office that wants to access your printer, and that means you have 10 machines which will access the same printer resource. That means that printer will have only one instance of it, and by sharing one printer, that means you're sharing the same resource every time. So how the implementation of the singleton pattern looks is, we have a printer function, and it has a printer instance. And here it's similar to the modular pattern that we have seen. You have a variable that you that is used in a closure, and you have a function which is returning something. Say it's returning two methods, which is print and turn on. It just function print is just doing something, and turn on is just checking if the paper exists or something. And from here printer function, you return a get instance method. In this case, you don't return explicitly the public methods that you want to expose, but you return a single method, which is the get instance method. It is similar to it's like you always want to return get instance method, because this get instance will check that if your printer instance is not available, then it will create the printer instance. It will call the create method, which is this one, and it will return you the print and the turn on methods on it, and then it will return the printer instance. So the next time someone is going to access this get instance method, so it will see that printer instance is already there because it's a private variable, and it will realize that it's already been instantiated. So it will not go through this, it will just return you the printer instance. So it will just return you the instance that's already been created, rather than creating it again and again. A fairly simple usage of this. You can just use printer.get instance method, and you can get access to the shared or the common object that you can use, and you don't have to create this object again and again.
Can you just explain how this printer instance? So have you assigned this to some variable or I didn't get it?
Okay, I'll explain it more. Like, say you'll use it by calling printer.get instance, right?
Okay.
You call the get instance method, and what get instance does is, it is a function which checks if the printer instance is available, and this printer instance is a variable that is inside this function, inside this complete function.
Mm-hmm.
And this acts as a private variable which will only be accessed by this one, and outside world will not have anything for this. So first time it comes here and it checks
Okay.
printer instance. It was undefined, so what it did is it came in here and it created an instance of this. It just returned me this first time, and next time when I came here, it says that it's already been defined because I already created this. So it will not come into this and just return me the older instance that, yeah, that was created. Yeah, this is how you will use the singleton pattern in real life while using the printers and all. Yeah. Okay. Let's move on to the next pattern, which is a factory pattern. Is of the commonly used patterns. Generally, it is used when something is fairly complex, when something is very complex, and you want to break down to simpler steps. Then you use this factory pattern. Generally, this type of implementation is used in the library codes that you see, the EXTJS library, that is a famous library, UI library. It uses the factory pattern internally, where I'll just give you an example. Say in a React Bootstrap, what you want to do is, you have a number of components. You have a button component, you have a panel component, you have an input component. Rather than creating a constructor for every component, what you do is you create a factory for that. By creating a factory, I mean, from outside, you tell it that what type of object I want, and according to that, it returns you the object or the function. Might not be clear, but we'll go to the implementation, then it will be more clear how this actually works. Okay, let's see the example of this. This is an example that used for this, which is, say I am defining some cars, and I'll have a vehicle factory that will decide that which kind of car or truck I want. I have a vehicle factory which will decide that which uh, which thing I want to instantiate. Either I want a car, I want a truck or something. Let's see the implementation. I have a function car, which is just nothing, just a simple constructor, and which I have a function truck, which has some properties similar to the car: door, state, and color. It has state, wheel size, and colors. And this is basic constructors. And now comes the factory thing. We have a function vehicle factory, which is just nothing but a skeleton, which is just a empty representation of this. And the next line is vehicle factory dot prototype dot vehicle class equals to car. What it is doing is it's just assigning a vehicle class property to the prototype of the vehicle factory as car. Yeah, I'll come to this later, that why this was necessary. It is just the default, something I want to default assign. That's why we have used this one. I'll come to this later one. Okay, now vehicle factory. What is the purpose of vehicle factory? Vehicle factory wants to create vehicles depending upon the options you have passed to it. So how do you use this is, it has a create vehicle method in which you pass some options, and according to that options it decide that does it want a type of car or does it want a type of truck, that which type of vehicle it wants. You just pass your option to this create vehicle method, and it will return you the car or the truck instance. What it does is, say you have passed car, what it is doing is it will check options.vehicle type, it will be car, and this it will assign vehicle class as car. So, and then at the end it returns that it returns by doing new on that. That means it returns instantiates that class. That means this dot vehicle class, which is referenced to as car here, and you pass the options to that, and it will be returned to you. Let's see example of this. Say you have a car factory and you just do a new on that, and you use this create vehicle method, and you just pass your options. You pass the vehicle type, you pass the color, you pass the doors as well, and these are basically the options that you see there. And create vehicle methods get called, and this is the create vehicle, and according to this it will decide that type is car, so it will return me the object of this car only, rather than deciding by myself what do I want to do. It will decide it. You give input to this and it will return you that you want this type of car or truck that you need, and we can test it to confirm that our car was created successfully. If you do car instance of car, it will return you true, saying that yes, the car is the instance of this one. Do you have any doubts or any questions on this one?
Oh, understood.
Okay, understood. Cool. Okay, the next one is similarly the if you want to instantiate a truck, you can pass the vehicle type as truck, and you don't have to worry about the instantiation and all. You just give your factory the options, the configuration, and it will return you the type of object you have wished for. This is when you use this is it's like the concept of interface that you have in object-oriented languages. You don't have interfaces in JavaScript, but this is similar to the kind how we would have implemented interfaces in JavaScript. We just create a factory, vehicle factory, which is just nothing but similar to interface, and you decide what options you want to pass to that interface, so that you construct an object out of that. So kind of that concept in JavaScript as well. So when to use this factory pattern is when an object or component setup in complexity. So that this is not generally used because we don't create libraries in our day-to-day lives. So when you want to create libraries and all, you think that you have some complex stuff, you have some complex creation of your objects, then you will use this one. And also depending, generally where you can use in your projects is where, depending upon the environment you are passing your config, say it is a dev environment, pp environment, or a prod environment, according to that you will pass your configuration, and your factory will return you the type of object you need for that type of configuration. This is basically where you will use this in real life. So these are the general patterns that we use in JavaScript, and basically now we know that how to use these patterns, and when we have also seen the real life, similar to like how where you want to use this and where it can be used, like where can factory pattern be used, where is revealing module pattern used, and similarly the constructor pattern as well. Yeah, this was the basics about this, and what we can conclude from it is basically a lot of patterns, but while thinking of your problem you need to look from these perspectives, that what do you want. Do you want some more manipulations? Then you will go with the modular pattern. If you want like simple representation of your object, then you will go to the constructor method. You can just pass your object and just expose everything to that. And if you have complex representations of your object that you are not aware, you can use the factory patterns in that case. Yeah, this is all about the design patterns that we know that are widely used in JavaScript.
Yeah, so just to add
Yeah,
on the conclusion, so it is not very hard and fast that it is not a rule that you follow a particular pattern. You can modify a particular pattern in your own way if you want. It is always possible. Let's say you want to modify a modular pattern in a certain way, you can always use that. Plus, I mean, you should use the module patterns because these are proven solutions to typical problems, and these are designed by highly industrial expert, so that you don't face those problems. So it is very advisable to always see your code and check if you can fit a pattern in it or not, because when initially you are writing a project, it may not seem very obvious that you should apply module pattern or singleton pattern or whatever pattern, but when you revisit your code, then you will realize that yes, I can modify this portion with the revealing module pattern and it will highly optimize my code. So
right,
just that.
right.
Yeah.
Definitely, we realize this when we want to optimize your code, when you think that your code is not reusable enough, maintainable enough. So it's better to think from the design perspective first when you start writing your code, and then use this rather than coming at a later point and refactoring your code again. So it will be useful if you do it in front. Yeah. Okay. The next thing that we generally discuss in our uh, discussion is the tips and tricks. Basically, we just share our knowledge, but we have come across new tools or something and all. On this, I'll go. I have gone through this ZSH, which is a Z shell. Are you aware of this?
Yeah, I'm using this. Oh my data set. So
Yeah.
I'm
Oh my
using Oh
ZSH.
my data set, but I don't know it very well. So it tells you the branch of Git. That's it. So you can
No,
roll it
yeah,
yourself.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, not just the branch of the
Yeah.
Git.
Yeah.
It has a lot of features that it provides to you. Uh, basically, basically, like very kind of dull and all. You want to add colors to this. You want to do something different. You want your terminal to look different. You can use ZSH, and there are a number of plugins available for this, like auto suggestion plugin. I'll show you on this one. Say, can you see my screen?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, see, I just type CDP and it will highlight me that you have already used this term again, and I can just press the right arrow key and it will just put me into that folder, giving me the
That's
auto suggestions. Yeah, you can just go to that rather than typing everything again and again and again. And also for all the git commands as well, say you do gst it has shortcuts inside it. It's git status for this, and you can also add your shortcuts to this, and you can also maintain, and it's also colorful to use this. You can go to the your ZSH profile. I'll go in the Sublime, and this has all the source code for this, and you can also add your things, make some plugin or something. You can just add this, like I'm using some
Shivam,
auto
your
suggestion plugin, which I
screen
just
is
showed
not
you.
visible. Your screen, yeah, now it is visible. Now again, it's okay. You can continue.
Oh, is it not visible? Okay, okay. How
Okay.
the things work. Yeah. Maybe the network is slow. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can go to the blog
So
search and you, yeah.
so these plugins and all, where are these available? These are on ZSH official website, or where did you find them?
Yes, yeah. These are in the ZSH. You can just type. Uh, I didn't find it on the ZSH official site, but I knew from the like what my mates are doing, because this is how you know about different plugins. You don't. These are not on My Zsh website. Some people have written these plugins. Say I type auto suggestions, but you need to know about this. You don't find it in the My Zsh website. It is an auto suggestion that is used by this ZSH configuration. Yeah, but that's why we have decided to do this show and tell type, discuss tips and tricks, because these are generally things you're not aware of. You see when someone else tells you. This is something that someone has told me, that you can use auto suggestions as well. This is really cool. Yeah, it really saves you a lot of work. Yeah, like, do you have any tip or trick for this one? I
Um.
only have one.
Oh, so you can probably share your. Then I will start.
Yeah, I only had this one. I don't have.
Okay. So I have a couple of Chrome extensions which I'm using these days, and I found them very useful. So the first one is the Great Suspender. I will probably post the links in the description. So
Okay.
I guess every developer or every one of us like opens a ton of tabs in our Mac or whatever PC, like 10,
Right.
20, 30 tabs. So it is internally eating a lot of memory. So what this great suspender does, it checks if your sum of the tab is inactive for a duration of, let's say, 30 minutes or 40 minutes. It will automatically suspend that tab so that your performance of your machine is not going down. So when we are
Okay.
researching something, we have opened like 50 tabs and we forgot that. Normally we always forgot to close the tabs, and it is eating the memory. The second
Right.
thing is uh, Grammarly, which I am using. I think most of us would be familiar by Grammarly now, because
Yeah.
yeah, we type and it is very helpful while typing. There
Right.
was one open source project which is very informative if you want to get some information on web security. It's a OWASP project, open source project. They have a wonderful blog, and they also have a local chapter in every city like Delhi, Pune, Mumbai. So all the major cities, they are having a local chapter. So they share information around web security, authentication, which is, I think, not very much known these days on web developers. So we can probably check that OWASP project.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Definitely.
So I think we
Yeah.
missed our introduction in the beginning. So I work as a front-end engineer at Times of India. I do take care of mobile web of Times of India, and Shivam, yours.
Yeah. I work in ThoughtWorks Technology as a front end engineer there, and I have 3 years of experience total now in front end world. Yeah. Generally, we do it this type of introduction in beginning of this session, but yeah, we started this session soon, so we missed it. So yeah,
Yeah.
this is it, I guess. Yeah.
So guys, do share your
Okay.
views in comments. Do like, and
Right.
whatever topics you want, just put in the comments. So we would be happy to take those things.
Right. And any suggestions or feedback how we can improve this videos, and how it can help everyone, or if there are specific topics you want to hear on, you can add that as well. Okay, cool. It was great.
Yeah. Thanks a lot
Okay,
for
bye
watching.
bye.
Bye.
Bye bye. Thank you.